It's only a small feature, but it might be really crucial in how you play the game. You must be thinking, what? Like, if you're having a look at this game, the features the F1 Manager has, it looks great in terms of the finances, the scouting, all of that's great. It looks like an amazing game. But there's one thing that I would say a successful management sim needs, and that is the ability to go on holiday. What do you mean go on holiday? Well, it's simple. It's about creating those simulations. It's about being able to go on holiday, right, from X point to a certain point. So let's say you start the game, right, and you don't want to be a manager of a team. You just want to simulate what happens. And you might think, right, I'm going to simulate the first 5 seasons. I'm going to simulate the first 10 seasons, see what happens. That gives us a challenge, right? So technically we could go to a team. We could start 5 years down the line, for example, right? And go, okay, Aston Martin or Alfa Romeo are now the worst team. Let's take over Alfa Romeo and build them up. Or maybe someone like Mercedes or a midfield team, rebuilding Mercedes, they've become a midfield team, we could rebuild them. So it just gives us challenges that we can do. But I also think there's a crucial part of the game, right, that will be overlooked if we're not being able to sim, and that is regens. Now, if you don't know what I mean by regens, it's when the F3 drivers or the F2 drivers, they've gone older, they promoted, and then there's new F3 drivers. So we're hoping, because this game can be played basically till infinity, we're going to get some regen of drivers. So if we're going to get some regens, you kind of want to see what the regens look like, 1, and 2, how are you going to scout them? How are you going to find the next Max Verstappen in F3? However, going on holiday, there's effects of going on holiday that needs to be coded in. Now, obviously, Football Manager is probably what F1 Manager should have aspired to, in a sense, because Football Manager, you can go on holiday, you can be a manager of a team, you can set certain instructions of what you want the assistant to do, for example, and they would do the season and so forth, and you'd see where you ended up at the end of the year. And you'd normally do that in Football Manager to test tactics and stuff, right? So what would you test, or what would you do on holiday in F1 Manager? And that's the thing, what would you test if you were in F1 Manager? Because race strategies is interesting. You can't just put a Football Manager tactic, for example, and you can play that for 38 games in the Premier League. You can't put the same race strategy and effectively simulate the same thing, because obviously, you know, you've got different weather, you've got different tracks, you know, there's different strategies that you'll need for each race. So how on earth would you be able to go on holiday and able to simulate that? That is an interesting question. However, we are the team principal. I'm assuming we become the Toto Wolff, the Christian Horner of this world. So we would have a team manager. So you could just, you know, in the staff responsibilities, say to the, you know, in the holiday section, if you were to go on holiday, you know, let the team manager do the strategies and so forth, and make sure they're all ticked so you don't get sacked and so forth. And you're kind of, you know, he's also in charge of making sure the development happens, and so you can sim that season. I think that's how you get away with it, because you have to remember, you know, in Football Manager, for example, it'd be the assistant manager, but in Formula 1 terms, it's the exact same. It's just it's not called an assistant manager. You've either got the deputy team principal in some cases, or you've got the actual team manager. So the team manager would then take charge of the team and the operation. So I think that is how you kind of get around that loophole of allowing them to take charge, and therefore you don't get sacked in a sense, and you're able to simulate that season. I suppose the last thing to say, though, is it fun? Yes and no, right, is the answer to that, because no, at the start, everyone is not going to holiday. No one's going to holiday and sim. Everyone wants to play the game, right? And that's correct. Everyone's going to play the game as it was. No one's going to holiday. It's just when you start realizing things, or you want to test a certain thing. Let's say, right, you just want to test aerodynamics, or maybe there's something that you holiday and you just focus and you say key focus on development, aerodynamics, for example. So basically, you're simulating aerodynamic changes, and basically the team manager will put aerodynamics as the focus, and then you see how your car develops. And then maybe you might go, okay, so that's how the car developed, just focusing on aerodynamics. Let me test it with chassis, let me test it with engine, let me test it with something else, right? And just see how the car changes. And in that way you can kind of start seeing, so this one is quite important, this one's less important, and you start learning about the game in a sense. So that could be fun in terms of learning. But at the beginning, obviously, it's just fun to get hands-on. But once you've had a hands-on career, you've done a couple of seasons, it's like, what's next? And then you kind of want to learn about the game. And I just think that's the next step. So going on holiday, being able to simulate, being able to test certain things, just keeps the game a bit interesting. So when you start a new fully fledged save, okay, right, I know now I need to focus on this. I need to try and also focus on this because this gets good development. This might help me build my team quicker. So I do think a holiday mode could be like crucial for the game in a sense, because it allows you just to do a bit more with the game, just to allow you to sim things, allow you to go 50 years into the future and see what's going on, allow you to go 100 years into the future and see how Formula 1's changed and so forth. Yes, it's all going to be the same teams, but it'd just be interesting to see, you know, did Williams go on a massive run of winning 5 Constructors' Championships and Drivers' Championships in like the 40s or whatever. It just gives us a chance to see what would happen and how the game changes as well. It'd be really interesting to see if you did go in a career mode like 40, 50 years into the future, like what changes. So that's my thoughts. I think a holiday mode really would be a great addition to the game. I don't know if it's in it at the moment. It could well be in it, and if it's in it, happy days. But I just think that is my one feature that should be in F1 Manager 22. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button, and see the links below for like Twitch and so forth. Give a follow on there. Would really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Goodbye.